Hi, it's Professor Lucido. I'm sitting in my front room with my kitchen behind me. Thanks for being awesome Communication Arts 151 mass media students. I hope you're safe and sound and can see this and watch this. And we'll talk through the 11th week, social media marketing together. I'm going to embed the videos for this week from the PowerPoint right into this video. So this should do it for you. PowerPoint, me talking a little bit, and we'll learn a little bit from these videos. So without any further ado, here's the PowerPoint. You read this article from Natasha D. Smith, Technology-Driven Must-Have Marketing Skills. So let's accept a few things. We're all content creators. You know, I'm a filmmaker, but you have ever posted, any of you, all of us, on Facebook or Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, whatever, right? Even something like Snapchat that's fleeting. We're all content creators, and we're all going to be working for ourselves or for companies that have social media marketing arms, departments, individuals, or teams, or both. And so this week is really about us trying to understand a little bit about how that works and how the mathematics and the algorithms work as well. Meaning that in this first video by Eli Pariser, the online filter bubbles, this is kind of a famous video from 2011. And this one here we'll watch first, but it's really about Google or Yahoo or Comcast or Verizon tracking our internet activity and then using that activity to frame any kind of a search we would do or any banners that might appear on the side of a browser while we're trying to do stuff. Think about you went shopping for a new garment or some shoes or something, but you didn't buy it, but you thought about it. So Amazon or somewhere else. And then as you're looking at the internet elsewhere on your phone or on a tablet or on a laptop or computer or something, a bubble comes up or a banner comes up with that same item that you were considering, or maybe you put in a shopping cart, but you didn't buy it. That's just one example. We could also talk about politics and all sorts of other things. The second video is this filter bubble video from Germany. And I think it's really fascinating, really a situation about, or an illustration for us, if you will, about politics and about how the internet can give us only what we want to see and what we want to hear. And then we're in a bubble, and then we're not maybe exposed to, let's say, ideas or values from someone younger than us, or someone that of a different political belief, or a different sexual orientation, or a different nationality or something. So that's a shorter video and really fascinating. And then the third one of these three I'm going to put in a row here for you to watch, Joan Blades and John Gable. Oh my gosh. So here is a very liberal woman and a very conservative man talking about sharing ideas and learning from each other, something I think we need. So with that, I'm going to start all three of these videos, and then we'll reconvene when they're done.
Mark Zuckerberg, a journalist, was asking him a question about the news feed. And the journalist was asking him, why is this so important? And Zuckerberg said, a squirrel dying in your front yard may be more relevant to your interests right now than people dying in Africa. And I want to talk about what a web based on that idea of relevance might look like. So when I was growing up in a really rural area in Maine, the internet meant something very different to me. It meant a connection to the world. It meant something that would connect us all together. And I was sure that it was going to be great for democracy and for our society. But there's this kind of shift in how information is flowing online. And it's invisible. And if we don't pay attention to it, it could be a real problem. So I first noticed this in a place I spend a lot of time, my Facebook page. I'm progressive politically, big surprise, but I've always gone out of my way to meet conservatives. I like hearing what they're thinking about. I like seeing what they link to. I like learning a thing or two. And so I was kind of surprised when I noticed one day that the conservatives had disappeared from my Facebook feed. And what it turned out was going on was that Facebook was looking at which links I clicked on. And it was noticing that actually I was clicking more on my liberal friends' links than on my conservative friends' links. And without consulting me about it, it had edited them out. They disappeared. So Facebook isn't the only place that's doing this kind of invisible algorithmic editing of the web. Google's doing it too. If I search for something and you search for something, even right now at the very same time, we may get very different search results. Even if you're logged out, one engineer told me, there are 57 signals that Google looks at. Everything from what kind of computer you're on, to what kind of browser you're using, to where you're located, that it uses to personally tailor your query results. Think about it for a second. There is no standard Google anymore. And the funny thing about this is that it's hard to see. You can't see how different your search results are from anyone else's. But a couple of weeks ago, I asked a bunch of friends to Google Egypt and to send me screenshots of what they got. So here's my friend Scott's screenshot. And here's my friend Daniel's screenshot. When you put them side by side, you don't even have to read the links to see how different these two pages are. But when you do read the links, it's really quite remarkable. Daniel didn't get anything about the protests in Egypt at all in his first page of Google results. Scott's results were full of them. And this was the big story of the day at that time. That's how different these results are becoming. So it's not just Google and Facebook either. This is something that's sweeping the web. There are a whole host of companies that are doing this kind of personalization. Yahoo News, the biggest news site on the internet, is now personalized. Different people get different things. Huffington Post, the Washington Post, New York Times, all flirting with personalization in various ways. And where this moves us very quickly toward a world in which the internet is showing us what it thinks we want to see, but not necessarily what we need to see. As Eric Schmidt said, it'll be very hard for people to watch or consume something that has not, in some sense, been tailored for them. So I do think this is a problem. And I think if you take all of these filters together, if you take all of these algorithms, you get what I call a filter bubble. And your filter bubble is kind of your own personal, unique universe of information that you live in online. And what's in your filter bubble depends on who you are, and it depends on what you do. But the thing is that you don't decide what gets in. And more importantly, you don't actually see what gets edited out. So one of the problems with the filter bubble was discovered by some researchers at Netflix. And they were looking at the Netflix queues, and they noticed something kind of funny that a lot of us probably have noticed, which is there are some movies that just sort of zip right up and out to our houses. They enter the queue, they just zip right out. So Iron Man zips right out, right? And Waiting for Superman can wait for a really long time. What they discovered was that in our Netflix queues, there's kind of this epic struggle going on between our future aspirational selves and our more impulsive present selves. We all want to be someone who has watched Rashomon. But right now, we want to watch Ace Ventura for the 4th time. So the best editing gives us a bit of both. It gives us a little bit of Justin Bieber and a little bit of Afghanistan. It gives us some information vegetables. It gives us some information dessert. And the challenge with these kind of algorithmic filters, these personalized filters, is that because they're mainly looking at what you click on first, it can throw off that balance. And instead of a balanced information diet, you can end up surrounded by information junk food. So what this suggests is actually that we may have the story about the internet wrong. In a broadcast society, this is how the founding mythology goes, right? In a broadcast society, there were these gatekeepers, the editors, and they controlled the flows of information. And along came the internet, and it swept them out of the way, and it allowed all of us to connect together, and it was awesome. But that's not actually what's happening right now. What we're seeing is more of a passing of the torch from human gatekeepers to algorithmic ones. And the thing is that the algorithms don't yet have the kind of embedded ethics that the editors did. So if algorithms are going to curate the world for us, if they're going to decide what we get to see and what we don't get to see, then we need to make sure that they're not just keyed to relevance. We need to make sure that they also show us things that are uncomfortable or challenging or important. This is what TED does, right? Other points of view. And the thing is, we've actually kind of been here before as a society. In 1915, it's not like newspapers were sweating a lot about their civic responsibilities. Then people kind of noticed that they were doing something really important. That in fact, you couldn't have a functioning democracy if citizens didn't get a good flow of information. That the newspapers were critical because they were acting as the filter, and that journalistic ethics developed. It wasn't perfect, but it got us through the last century. And so now, we're kind of back in 1915 on the web. And we need the new gatekeepers to encode that kind of responsibility into the code that they're writing. You know, I know there are a lot of people here from Facebook and from Google, Larry and Sergey, who, people who have helped build the web as it is, and I'm grateful for that. But we really need you to make sure that these algorithms have encoded in them a sense of the public life, a sense of civic responsibility. We need you to make sure that they're transparent enough that we can see what the rules are that determine what gets through our filters. And we need you to give us some control so that we can decide what gets through and what doesn't. Because I think we really need the internet to be that thing that we all dreamed of it being. We need it to connect us all together. We need it to introduce us to new ideas and new people and different perspectives. And it's not going to do that if it leaves us all isolated in a web of one. Thank you.
Facebook's current slogan in German-speaking countries translates as more of what you like and less of everything else. In practice, it can look like this. A fan likes Justin Bieber's latest posts and leaves comments on his concert videos. Facebook's algorithms take note and start sending more Justin Bieber content to the fan's newsfeed. It sounds harmless enough when it's a pop star, but what if it's a political topic? Take the US elections, for instance. Often, supporters of Donald Trump or Ted Cruz have liked anti-abortion content, or the gun lobby. A personalized Facebook feed might look something like this. A user who liked the Democrats could be sent very different content depending on what they liked, so Facebook may be reinforcing users' viewpoints. One communications expert warns users about a phenomenon called the echo chamber.
Echo chambers are spheres of communication where people keep encountering their own views and never hear any opinions that contradict them. That may be very pleasant for those people, of course, because they're always getting their own opinions confirmed.
That's unhealthy for society, as different political camps fail to exchange and debate ideas properly. Take the refugee situation in Germany. Those who welcome refugees might get to see positive images. But users who like right-wing populist groups could get very different images delivered to them. This can be a real problem, considering that an increasing number of people turn to Facebook for information. In Germany, it's currently about 1 in 20. Media expert Patrick Breitenbach says objective viewpoints fall by the wayside.
What we're actually seeing is that the extreme views, the loudest voices, are shouting all the others down. The discussion may be continuing below the surface, but we don't hear it for all the static floating around.
But are the algorithms exclusively to blame? A study commissioned by Facebook disagrees, saying that users tend to ignore posts that contradict their own opinions. And friendship requests are generally sent to like-minded people. These habits also help to skew the selection of content. Breitenbach calls on users to like and comment more consciously.
We're making quite a few mistakes, so now we've got to pay a bit more attention to what effects our communications may be having.
In this crucial way, Facebook mirrors real life. People who don't listen to others' views will lose touch with reality.
Schiff says users cannot live on Facebook alone.
Do you have politically diverse friends? What do you talk about with them? I'm a progressive. I live in a town full of progressives. And 15 years ago, I didn't have any conservative friends. Now I have a wonderful mix of friends, and they include John.
I am not a progressive. I'm a Republican who grew up in a Republican family in the conservative South and even worked in Republican politics locally and the national level. But the last 24 years I've been in technology and living in a very progressive area. So I have a lot of progressive friends, including Joan.
So I was born in Berkeley, California, a notoriously progressive college town. And I live there now. In 1998, 6 months into the Monica Lewinsky Clinton impeachment scandal, I helped co-found MoveOn.org with a one-sentence petition. Congress must immediately censure the president and move on to pressing issues facing the nation. Now, that was actually a very unifying petition in many ways. You could love Clinton or hate Clinton and agree that the best thing for the country was to move on. As a leader of Move On, I saw the polarization just continue. And I found myself wondering why I saw things so differently than many people in other parts of the country. So in 2005, when I had an opportunity to get together with grassroots leaders across the political divide, I grabbed it. And I became friends with a lot of people I'd never had a chance to talk to before. And that includes leadership in the Christian coalition, often seen as on the right, the way Move On is seen as on the left. And this led to me showing up on Capitol Hill with one of the Christian coalition leaders, my friend, to lobby for net neutrality. That was powerful. We turned heads. So this work was transformational for me. And I found myself wondering, how could vast numbers of people have the opportunity to really connect with people that have very different views?
I was born in Oneida, Tennessee, right across the state border from a small coal mining town, Stearns, Kentucky. And I lived there for the first few years of my life before moving to another small town, Frankfort, Kentucky. Basically, I grew up in small town America, conservative at its heart. Now, Stearns and Berkeley, they're a little different. So in the 90s, I moved out west to a progressive area to work in technology. Worked at Microsoft, worked at Netscape, actually became the product manager lead for Netscape Navigator, the first popular web browser. Now, in the early days of the internet, we were just moved and inspired by a vision. When we're connected to all these different people around the world and all these different ideas, we'll be able to make great decisions, and we'll be able to appreciate each other for the beautiful diversity that the whole world has to offer. Now, I also, 20 years ago, gave a speech saying it might not work out that way. That we might actually be trained to discriminate against each other in new ways. So, what happened? It's not like we just woke up one day and decided to hate each other more. Here's what happened. There's just too much noise, too many people, too many ideas. So we use technology to filter it out a little bit. And what happens? It lets in ideas I already agree with. It lets in the popular ideas. It lets in people just like me who think just like me. That sounds kind of good, right? Well, not necessarily. Because two very scary things happen when we have such narrow worldviews. First, we become more extreme in our beliefs. Second, we become less tolerant of anybody who's different than we are. Does this sound familiar? Does this sound like modern America, the modern world? Well, the good news is that technology is changing, and it could change for the better. And that's, in fact, why I started allsides.com, to create technologies and services to free us from these filter bubbles. The very first thing we did was create technology that identifies bias, so we could show different perspectives side by side to free us from the filter bubbles of news media. And then I met Joan.
So I met John outside of Washington, D.C., with an idealistic group of cross-partisans, bridge builders, and we wanted to reweave the fabric of our communities. We believe that our differences can be a strength, that our values can be complementary, and that we have to overcome the fight so that we can honor everyone's values and not lose any of our own. I went for this wonderful walk with John where I started learning about the work he was doing to pierce the filter bubble. It was powerful, it's brilliant. Living in separate narratives is not good. We can't even have a conversation or do collaborative problem solving when we don't share the same facts.
So one thing to take away from today is if Joan Blades asks you to go on a walk, go on that walk. It changed things. It really changed the way I was thinking about things. To free ourselves from the filter bubbles, we can't just think about information filter bubbles, but also relationship and social filter bubbles. You see, we human beings, we're not nearly as smart as we think we are. We don't generally make decisions intellectually. We make them emotionally, intuitively, and then we use our big old brains to rationalize anything we want to rationalize. We're not really like Vulcans, like Mr. Spock. We're more like bold cowboys like Captain Kirk, or passionate idealists like Dr. McCoy. Okay, for those of y'all who prefer the new Star Trek crew, here you go.
Don't forget the strong women.
Come on, strong women. Okay.
All right. John and I are both Star Trek fans. What's not to love about a future with that kind of optimism?
And having a good future in mind is a big deal, very important. And understanding what the problem is very important, but we have to do something. So what do? It's actually not that hard. We have to add diversity to our lives. Not just information, but relationship diversity. And by diversity, I mean big D diversity. Not just racial and gender, which are very important, but also diversity of age, like young and old, rural and urban, liberal and conservative. In the US, Democrat and Republican. Now, one of the great examples of somebody freeing themselves from their filter bubbles and getting a more diverse life is, once again next to me, Joan.
So the question is, who among you has had relationships lost or harmed due to differences in politics, religion, or whatever? Raise your hands. Yeah. This year, I have talked to so many people that have experienced that kind of loss. I have seen tears well up in people's eyes as they talk about family members from whom they're estranged. Living room conversations were designed to begin to heal political and personal differences. They're simple conversations where two friends with different viewpoints each invite two friends for a structured conversation where everyone's agreed to some simple ground rules: curiosity, listening, respect, taking turns, everything we learned in kindergarten, right? Really easy. So that by the time you're talking about the topic you've agreed to talk about, you actually have a sense of, I kind of like this person, and you listen to each other differently. That's kind of a human condition. We listen differently to people we care about. And then there's reflection and possibly next steps. This is a deep listening practice. It's never a debate. And that's incredibly powerful. These conversations in our own living rooms with people who have different viewpoints are an incredible adventure. We rediscover that we can respect and even love people that are different from us. And it's powerful.
So, what are you curious about?
What's the conversation you yearn to have?
Let's do this together. Together?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so one of the things we get having watched those videos and we move into a company, be it a nonprofit, like let's say the American Cancer Society, or a major corporation, like let's say Coca-Cola or something like that, the idea that right often translates into adaptable, okay? And the idea that being resilient, being flexible is really important and really helpful when it comes to dealing with your audience, your consumers, the people that are going to use your product or service, or the people that are going to use the suicide hotline or an anti-drug service. Or in other words, this doesn't have to just apply to a corporation trying to sell products. It could be something to do with our health or our mental health or something like that. Okay. Marketing technology today requires marketers to be data driven and tech savvy, as well as content creators. Again, I talked about all of us are content creators, and we're probably going to have jobs being involved with content creators, or we're going to be creating content ourselves, or both, right? Here's two very brief videos from this guy named Jan Razab, and it just gives you a sense of some of the video channels that are out there helping people, helping companies stay up to date as to how they're going to do their work. These are now 3 years old, 2017, but at that point, stories were just coming. Facebook story, Instagram story, and so on were just coming on. Now, of course, we use stories quite a bit. So enjoy these two quick videos, and I'll talk to you on the other side.
Hi, I'm Jan Rezab, this is Social Media Minute. With every one of these social media minutes, we try and give you a little bit of a guide, a little bit of advice to help with your social media campaigns. We've done over 50 videos of Social Media Minute trying to narrow down the specific advice. And here's our top advice of 2017. Number one, live video is going to be big. Live and real-time events, whether it's on Instagram, who recently launched it, on YouTube, on Snapchat, on Facebook. Go do live content. Number two is video, right? Video has become huge over the last 2 years, and video monetization is also coming. So for the media organization out there, for the influencers, for the celebrities, this is gonna mean big stuff. Now, what does that mean for brands? Is those online social media celebrities and influencers are gonna have a better way to even monetize their own content, which means you're gonna have to get to them in a different way. Number three, mobile games. Facebook, with launching the Instant Games format, which is playable straight to the newsfeed, means that the original Flash games, you can now actually make little HTML5 mini games and put them straight on social media, straight into the newsfeed. That's very exciting. Next up is using multiple formats. Social media channels like Instagram, which were previously photos, are now photos, videos, live videos, etc. Facebook, who was just sort of status update, have gone to a wide range of statuses, including 360 different VR experiences, 360 video, and even soon 360 live video. So you have to engage in these multiple formats, as well as, number five, the stories format. Snapchat has really invented that stories format, but since then, Instagram and even Messenger have borrowed that format and created it in their own, which is going to be much bigger at obviously their scale. And brands should look at launching those stories out of multiple of these channels. Stories is definitely a great way to engage an audience in a very quick way. They're obviously a 24-hour format, so you have to publish them a little more frequently. So if you do it, focus on doing it in the right way. So those are the top tips of 2017. Good luck, and let's do a quick review at the end of the year. Hi, I'm Jan Rezab, and this is Social Media Minute. Facebook, as a company, doesn't have to be number one in doing anything. It doesn't have to be first. It doesn't have to be the best. It has to be good enough. So they're applying sort of a Me Too strategy. And this is great when we look at their stories formats that they've launched on Instagram and also in the Facebook Messenger app. This is clearly something Snapchat has invented. Vertical photos, vertical mini videos that they're sort of posting out. They're valid for 24 hours and they blast them out there. Now, Facebook has bluntly copied this. They even admitted, Kevin, the founder of Instagram, has admitted they've been inspired purely by Snapchat. This is amazing, and I think the first time a major company has ever admitted to copying something so nicely. And they've copied that format and put it up on Instagram. They put it up in Facebook Messenger, and it's doing great. And honestly, I think probably during this year we'll see bigger adoptions. They already announced that 150 million people are using the function, and it'll be more and more. And soon that feature will beat Snapchat in and of itself. And Instagram obviously has the bigger scale, and Facebook Messenger even a bigger scale than that. So let's keep watching that adoption for brands and marketers. Keep trying both, obviously, and keep watching our social media minutes every Monday.
So even when we're trying to fill a marketing role, we dive in and find out if it's more analytics, if it's more content creation, or if it's more strategic. Okay, analytics meaning the data you can get as to how many people clicked or watched or viewed your social media meme or your post or your little video that you did, and what their age groups are and what their, let's say, gender is, and so forth and so on, where they live, what part of the country. That's analytics. It's data, and you can access all that if you have a paid Instagram or Facebook or other social media account. If it's more about content creation, again, telling the story, the social media memes, the podcasts, the videos, and I'm gonna propose that it is the third one, more strategic. In other words, a combination of understanding all of these sorts of things and having a holistic approach. So technology has been a double-edged sword for marketers, says Don Sherman. So he's the Chief Technology Officer and Vice President of Product Marketing at CRM platform Pegasystems. So Pegasystems is a gigantic worldwide company, information company. The corollary might be Comcast or Cisco Systems or General Electric or some major corporation that we might be a little more familiar with here in the United States. But Pegasystems is helping businesses, financial businesses and others all over the world manage their data and do their marketing, do their social media and other kinds of marketing. Okay. It's given marketers far greater access to data, far more ways to reach their customers, whether it's technological, like social mobile devices, or even the emergence of the web about 10 years ago. So marketers have a greater set of tools at their disposal. However, that means to be a marketer, you have to know a little bit about a lot of technology. And I think that's the key to this notion right here. You have to know a little bit about all kinds of technological advances and the data analytics that go with those and how those tools can be used for content creation. Okay, let's watch this video. It's a little dull and boring, sorry. It's basically a clip of a live news broadcast. But Sherman gets to talking about artificial intelligence and all kinds of ways he and his company serve other major corporations and nonprofits around the world. We'll talk on the other side.
Well, artificial intelligence is the way of the future, according to Pegasystems. It's all about making business easier, but treading a fine line between keeping customers happy as well as keeping employees happy. Working with such big names as ANZ, QBE and Telstra, Pegasystems process management software is revolutionising the personalised customer service experience. For more, I spoke earlier with Chief Technology Officer John Spicer. I mean, look, thanks very much for your time today. Look, just to start with, tell us about Pegasystems.
So Pegasystems is an enterprise software company. We work with some of the largest organizations in the world, including companies like Commonwealth Bank of Australia and the New South Wales government here in Sydney. And we focus on automating their processes and bringing intelligence to every point in their customer interactions, their customer engagement.
So what are some of the processes then that you're helping these businesses with when it comes to automating them?
Well, for example, at Telstra, which is a big communications company here, we actually automate their end-to-end moves process. So when somebody needs to move their phone service from one place to another, we work with them to drive those moves and almost triple their customer satisfaction rate by making that process easier and reducing by 1/3 the number of complaints they got during the move process.
When you are speaking to clients or prospective clients, generally how open are they when it comes to the idea and the notion of incorporating intelligence, automation into their processes?
I think lots of organizations are really excited about intelligence. Things like robotics, things like AI have got a lot of buzz and a lot of hype. But what I think organizations really want is guidance and recommendations on how to pragmatically put this into place and get away from just sort of the buzzwords and the hype to something that's going to actually deliver real value to their customers and real value to their business.
And just on that, it does seem that businesses tend to look at AI, for example, as a way to better, if you like, the customer experience. How else do you educate them on the way that they should be looking at and adopting that sort of technology?
So one of the things we do is really focus on the interactions with a customer that they want to improve, right? So that might be their service interactions and figuring out how you streamline that to make it easier. That might be their cross-sell and selling interactions. So at Commonwealth Bank of Australia, we use our AI brain, we call it the Customer Decision Hub, to make real-time decisions about the kind of products they should be offering to their customers. And what we've seen is a 10% increase in the amount of revenue they've driven out of the branch based on that work that we've done with them.
What about when you talk to the business or the businesses talk to you about the idea that perhaps some of their workforce might look at, in particular, automation, if you like, with a degree of trepidation because they might fear that it could spell an end to their own jobs?
I don't think that effective automation is about replacing people in the workforce. It's about augmenting those users. So we have one of the largest robotic automation deployments in the world at Telstra. But robots don't replace users. They sit on the desktop alongside 25,000 users in the Telstra contact centers, and the robots eliminate the manual work, the rote effort, so those users can actually focus on having a conversation with the customer. I think of this as kind of being like advanced chess. How do we provide technology that can automate, that can make the employee more intelligent, and help them do their job better and more effectively? Not about replacing the employee or the human worker. Because I think in most situations, you still need that human judgment, and you still need that human interaction and empathy in order to have a meaningful customer engagement.
I think that's really interesting because when I was sort of reading up on it, it was quite interesting to see a lot of people talking about using AI to actually help drive employee satisfaction because the customer's needs are being better met and the employee is able to focus on, I suppose, some of their core areas and let the AI and the automation take care of some of the peripheral.
I mean, you talk to any employee who works in a contact center or works in a branch, the thing they're going to tell you about their satisfaction is they're struggling with their systems. They've got 5 or 6 systems on the desktop. The systems they do have are just bombarding them with data and forcing them to figure it out. If you can use some robotic automation to cut through that complexity so they don't have to tab between a bunch of different systems and can talk to a user, and if you can use some AI to take that data and turn it into real-time recommendations about how to engage this customer. Maybe it's just even to point out that it's the customer's birthday and you should say hello, but just to provide that kind of guidance so the user isn't struggling and they can focus on doing the things that feel good, which is having a relationship and an interaction with their customer.
And looking at it from the businesses, so the customer's perspective, particularly when it relates to AI, you mentioned the ability to cut through some of the complexities. Does that also go towards regulation, in particular, regulated industries, helping businesses to adapt to change?
I think so. One of the things I think about AI is it's not a silver bullet. And especially in regulated industries, you're not going to want to send an army of machine learning out to just figure out every interaction. You might be able to figure out, for example, in banking, that there's a great offer that a customer is likely to buy, but your regulations and your business ethics say that for this particular customer, that's too risky for them to take on. So really the goal is going to be how do you combine AI with governance that can be driven by humans through rules they can put into the system in real time and making changes, so that it's about the machines learning the best things the machine can learn, which is from data, and humans applying the kind of judgment and ethics that really only a human can provide.
And what is the landscape like at the moment when it comes to AI governance? Risks and best practices, but is it something that is being formulated universally, or is it something that comes down to unique and sort of specific businesses and requirements?
I think there are a lot of sort of theoretical and government groups that are thinking about how do we govern AI, but at the end of the day, it's coming down to businesses as they bring these technologies in, really figuring out how they want to use it. And the businesses that I have found have been most effective really understand that ultimately this decisioning technology is about figuring out what's the best thing for the customer. And if I do the best thing for the customer, whether it's recommend a service, whether it's offer them a new product, whether it's change their rates so I can keep them around longer as a customer, if I continue to do the best things for the customer and balance that effectively with my business goals, I think I'm going to stay on the right side of both the relationship, but I'm also going to have a happier customer who's going to come back to me again and again.
You mentioned before some of the large businesses that you have as customers here in Australia, the likes of Telstra, the Commonwealth Bank. I mean, these are some of our biggest companies. Is the sort of offerings that you're providing, is it something that is most suited to large companies, or as we go along, do you see automation, intelligence, artificial intelligence is actually being applicable across entire scale when it comes to business size?
One of the things that we're seeing in our business, both in Australia and across the world, is we're continuing to see our customer base expand from some of the largest of the large. For example, we work with ANZ, but we also work with ME Bank, who's a branchless digital-only bank, to digitize all of their internal processes and ensure that customers have great experience when they're interacting with ME processes on a website or via a mobile device. So we're continually seeing the technology reach the use point that smaller and smaller organizations can begin to engage with it. And I think that's what's really exciting about things like robotics, because it provides a really great starting point for an organization to begin to be able to see what automation can do.
And have you noticed any differences between the appetite and the openness for it, or lack thereof, if you like, between Australian companies and some of the other companies in other markets that you deal with?
Not necessarily. I'll say I've met with a number of the people, for example, from Commonwealth Bank of Australia, and they're some of the smartest big data architects that I've met with. These are guys who really understand how to apply this, what was called predictive analytics and self-learning algorithms to the customer engagement lifecycle. So I think there are some really smart organizations working really effectively here in Australia. We actually have an event coming up on Thursday featuring a lot of our Australian clients, including Commonwealth Bank of Australia, telling their stories, and I think there's a lot to learn from what some of these guys are doing.
And Don Sherman, just on that, from the conversations that you're having with your clients, be they in this market or globally, and from what you see yourself, where is this going? What are going to be the next steps, if you like, in terms of this technology and then the applications available for business?
Well, I think one of the things that's going to happen is we've got a lot of hype in the AI space right now. I mean, obviously there are announcements of partnerships between a lot of some of the largest software players in the world, and that's driving a lot of the hype machine. But I think what that hype machine is opening up is the realization that for a lot of companies, some of this technology is pragmatic and real and can be deployed today. So I think the hype around AI is driving a lot of organizations to take a real look at how they can use it, especially in their customer engagement. And I'm really excited to see organizations start putting more and more of this kind of technology to practical use to improve their customer experiences and improve their bottom lines.
Okay, and finally, a study from the Online Marketing Institute says that 37% of surveyed companies need a data-savvy staff. That's what Natasha D. Smith writes in the article that you read. Just 26% of companies, let's say about a quarter of companies, according to the American Management Association, reported that they feel their analytic needs are met. Within content creation, of course, automation tools are essential in content management, helping create a cadence and allowing marketers to be always on. Marketers should also have the savvy to engage consumers to co-produce content. The cadence situation is worth thinking about. In other words, if you're a company, some of you might be, you might be an influencer. That'd be awesome if you were, right? And so you have a gigantic or potentially big social media influence. Certainly you're following influencers and you're thinking about what's trending, right? The cadence has to do with, do you put out a new note, a new meme, a new tweet, a new video, a new podcast, a new photograph every hour, every minute, every day, every week, every month? Like, how often do you do this, right? And what's the best practice for not annoying your audience, but still keeping them tuned into what you're doing. We might agree that daily is a good way. I don't know. It depends on what we're talking about, right? But the idea that, and then in this part right here that's italicized, always on. So social media creators can plan these posts and get them all set, and then the software itself will pump them out hourly or daily or weekly or monthly at whatever the designer wants, right? So yeah, basically the marketers, the ones that want to sell you the product or service or convince you to not smoke or to take care of yourself and avoid diabetes, whatever it might be, right? Those marketers should also have the savvy to engage consumers to co-produce the content. So this idea that first-person testimonials from product users, rating your products, right? If you've ever bought anything, they want you to rate it and give a comment or two, and that's important for the people that are producing the products to have an audience connection and to have first-person testimonial, if you will, about their product, so that it encourages other people to buy them. Have you ever shopped on Amazon? I'm sure most of you have, or all of us have, where one of the things you decide is, what are other people saying about the product? What's the ratings? What are they saying? It works well, it's safe, whatever it is, right? And you look at that maybe as a part of your purchasing habit. This is this idea of being always on and engaging consumers to produce the content. So that concludes this lecture. Let me unshare my screen and say hi. Yeah, we'll get through the rest of this semester and we'll all be awesome. I'll do one of these for next week's unit as well. Have a great week and we'll see you soon.